You know, it's funny. We talk about financial planning, and it's almost like this thing, right? Like it's only for people with yachts and, those with tons of money to worry about.
Mm.
But I don't know about you, but here we are in late 2024, and it feels like things are changing so fast. Like the ground is shifting under our feet financially every other week.
Yeah.
So today we're doing a deep dive into how financial advice really works. Like, how does this whole industry actually operate?
Right.
And we've got this chapter from the Canadian Securities Institute. It's all about financial advisors, how they work, how they think.
Yeah.
And trust me, this is way more interesting than it sounds.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
By the end of this, will you be ready to start your own financial firm? Probably not.
Right.
But you'll definitely have a better sense of what to look for, what questions to ask, to make sure you're getting the best advice for you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What I find really fascinating about this material, especially reading it now, is how much being a financial advisor has changed, even just the past couple of years. I mean, it's not just about, picking hot stocks anymore, or even just balancing a portfolio. People want like holistic financial planning. They want it all, which means a huge time commitment from the advisor.
It's so true. And I think for most of us, we don't really think about all that work that goes on behind the scenes, right? Like,
Yeah.
we just think, oh, they're just, recommending some stocks. But this chapter, it breaks down these two core activities of what financial planning is. There's the analysis part and then the implementation, which,
Mhm.
I mean, analysis sounds intense.
It is. You're basically a financial detective, right?
Yeah.
You're digging through someone's entire financial life,
Oh, wow.
trying to uncover every single detail, every little thing.
Wow. So what are they looking for? Like, what kind of data are we talking?
So it's not just about like, how much money you have in the bank right now.
Okay.
It's about, okay, what are your goals?
Short term, long term.
Short term, long term. Exactly. Risk tolerance.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about this?
Yeah.
What are your dreams? What are you scared of when it comes to money?
It's kind of like therapy almost, getting into those deep-seated
A little bit.
bunny fears. Wow.
And it's all relevant, right? It all plays into building a plan that actually, is going to work for someone.
Yeah.
But, and this is, I think, where the tension comes in, that analysis phase doesn't directly make money for most advisors.
Okay, so this is what I think is so interesting. How do advisors actually get paid? Because I think so many of us, we just assume it just magically works out, right?
Right. Until you get the bill, and then it's like, wait, what is this?
Exactly.
This chapter, it actually breaks it down in a really interesting way. They talk about direct revenue versus indirect revenue for advisors.
Mm.
Direct is pretty simple.
Correct?
It's the fee you pay directly to the advisor for their service.
Okay.
So that could be a flat fee, an hourly rate, or a percentage of the assets that they manage for you.
So that's like me paying a consultant like, hey, I'm paying you for your expertise and your time, regardless of what they tell me to do with my money.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, indirect revenue, that's where it gets a little
Juicy.
juicier, yeah. This is typically earned through commissions on the financial products that they recommend you buy. So things like mutual funds or insurance policies.
So that's where that conflict of interest thing can come in.
Potentially, yeah.
Like, are they recommending this because it's the best thing for me or because they get a bigger cut?
Exactly, yeah. And that's why this whole idea of fee-only financial planning has become much more popular recently.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not always black and white, right? Because a lot of advisors, they're moving to what they call a fee-based model,
Okay.
which means they charge a percentage of the assets they're managing for you. Usually it's somewhere between like 0.25% to 1% per year or something like that.
Okay.
And that helps align their incentives with yours, at least in theory. Because the more your portfolio grows, the more they earn as well.
It's so interesting how that all works. So if an advisor is either making money based on the assets they manage or the commissions they earn, it would make sense that they would kind of have like tiers of clients. Like, who are they prioritizing? Who's going to be most profitable for their business?
Right.
And that kind of gets us to this whole client segmentation thing, which, let's be honest, when I first heard that, it sounded kind of icky.
It does sound a little, it has a negative connotation when you first hear it.
Yeah.
But it's not always a bad thing. It's like, think of it like doctors,
Yeah.
right? Doctors specialize. You don't go to a heart surgeon if you have a broken foot.
That's true.
And in the same way, client segmentation just means that different advisors, they may focus on serving clients whose needs and financial situations are a good fit for their expertise in their business.
So it's not about necessarily like we're excluding people. It's just, hey, we want to do really well by the people who we were working with
Exactly.
and be the most helpful for them.
And for you as the client, this is actually really important because it allows you to then be like, okay, who is this person? What do they specialize in? And are they the right fit for me? Or do I need to find somebody who speaks my language, understands my world?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so it's not just like, these arbitrary buckets that they're putting people into. This actually impacts the way they structure their services, how much time and attention they can give each client, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I don't know, going to a busy walk-in clinic versus having like a dedicated primary care physician, right?
Yeah.
Like you're going to get a different level of service and attention.
That's a really good analogy. And, this chapter from the CSI, they actually get into the weeds of how advisors segment clients.
Okay.
It can get pretty specific, but they basically say there are three main approaches. There's like the total assets that someone has under management.
Okay.
There's the percentage of their total annual revenue that you might represent as a client. And then there's something they call the financial advisor offer.
Okay. Financial advisor offer. That sounds like something I should know, but I'm going to be honest, I'm a little lost.
Yeah.
Break that one down for me.
It basically means that some advisors, they specialize, right?
Yeah.
They might only work with, let's say, medical professionals or tech entrepreneurs, something like that.
Okay.
Because they understand the unique challenges and opportunities in those fields.
So it's like niche marketing, but for finances.
Exactly.
They're not just looking for anybody. They're like, no, we want to work with this kind of person because we know their world.
Exactly. And for you as the client, that's really good to know.
Right.
Because then you can be more selective, right?
Yes.
You can be like, okay, do you get me? Do you understand my world?
Right.
Or do we need to find somebody else who speaks my language?
Oh my gosh. I wish I had known this like when I first started managing my own finances. Okay, so that's
Yeah.
financial advisor offer. The other two, though, total assets under management and percentage of revenue, that seems pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah.
Like, how does that play into this whole ideal client thing?
Well, it's about the advisor finding a good balance for their business, right? So remember we were talking about how some advisors earn a percentage of the assets they manage.
Right.
So naturally, they're going to prioritize clients with larger portfolios.
Makes sense.
Right. Because that means more revenue for them.
Yeah.
It's just the business side of things.
Right. But if I'm sitting here and I don't have a huge portfolio, that doesn't mean I'm out of luck, right?
Not at all.
Okay.
And this is where understanding this whole landscape of financial planning is important.
Mm-hmm.
Because you might not be the perfect client for like a super high-end wealth manager, somebody who's dealing with like
Right.
millions and millions of dollars.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that there aren't tons of amazing advisors out there who are specifically focused on people who are like, earlier in their careers or who have more modest assets.
Yeah.
Right.
It goes back to that whole finding the right fit thing.
Exactly.
That advisor who's really invested in your success, no matter where you are on your journey.
Right. And speaking of different needs and different approaches, this chapter also goes into the different types of financial planning that an advisor might offer.
Okay. Yeah.
Because it's not a one-size-fits-all.
And this is where we get into the difference between like comprehensive planning versus like a modular approach.
Exactly.
Okay, I've been wanting to get to this because I will be honest, the thought of doing like full-on comprehensive financial planning for myself
Yeah.
is overwhelming. It feels like, where do I even
A
begin?
lot of people feel that way.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think it's good to understand the options. So comprehensive planning, it really is what it sounds like. It's the like deep dive.
Yeah.
It's the 360 view of your financial life. You're covering everything: budgeting, debt, investments, retirement planning, estate planning.
It's like building your dream home from scratch with like blueprints and everything. You got to make sure everything's in place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But just like building a house, that takes time.
Right.
It takes commitment. It takes a significant investment, both financially and in terms of, just information and effort on your part.
So not necessarily the best approach for someone who is like, just starting out. Or maybe they just have this one specific goal in mind, like I'm trying to buy my first house or I'm trying to pay off these student loans.
Exactly. And that's where this modular planning comes in. So think of it as more of a focused approach.
Okay.
It's flexible. It addresses a specific need or goal that you have right now.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of like, renovating your entire house, it's like, okay, let's just focus on the kitchen this year.
Okay, so if comprehensive planning is like the five-course gourmet meal, this is like ordering a la carte. Like I'm
Yeah,
just going to pick and choose exactly what I want when I want it.
exactly.
I love that. Okay. So how do I know which approach is right for me?
Mhm.
And like, how does this tie back into, finding the right advisor?
Right. Well, going back to how advisors segment their clients, that often dictates what they specialize in terms of planning.
Okay.
So advisors who tend to work with those higher net worth individuals, those with the larger portfolios, they're often going to focus on that comprehensive planning.
Okay.
It aligns with their business and it aligns with their clients.
It makes sense. So if I'm like, just starting out, or if I've got a more modest portfolio, finding someone who maybe focuses on that modular approach is going to be a better fit.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to have that conversation up front,
Right.
right?
Okay.
Ask them,
Mhm.
like, hey, what's your approach to financial planning? Who is your ideal client? How do you tailor your services?
Yeah. Be an informed consumer.
Exactly.
Advocate for yourself, right?
Because this is your financial journey, we need to find someone who's going to be a guide.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And speaking of finding the right guide, let's maybe shift gears a little bit and talk about what you should be looking for in a financial advisor in general.
Okay.
Because it's not like all advisors are created equal, right?
Right.
It's amazing, though, when you think about it, all this complexity before we even get to, like, okay, what stocks should I buy? Whatever. There's so much more to it. And I think this is good. I don't know about you, but this is making me feel more empowered, actually, having this knowledge.
Me too, 100%. I think when you understand, like you said, the business models at play, how they're segmenting clients, the different approaches to planning,
Yeah.
you can actually find someone who's a good fit for you.
Totally. So, okay, someone is listening to this right now. Maybe they're just starting to think about their finances. Maybe they've been working with an advisor for years. What are some key things they should take away from all of this? Like, what should
Uh,
they be thinking about?
I think the biggest thing is just remembering you are the CEO of your own financial life.
Oh, I love that.
An advisor can be an amazing partner,
Yes.
but you're the one in the driver's seat, ultimately.
Yes.
So don't be afraid to ask questions, challenge assumptions, make sure you understand the why behind the recommendations. Don't just blindly follow.
It's a partnership, not a dictatorship.
Exactly. And like any good partnership, communication is key.
Right.
So be open, be honest with your advisor,
Yeah.
talk about your goals, your concerns, how comfortable you are with different levels of risk.
Yeah, this is your money, it's your future. You've got to be able to like be totally transparent and make sure you're on the same page.
Totally. Okay, so we've talked about, finding that advisor where their client segmentation, their planning approach, it aligns with what you need.
Mm-hmm.
What are some other like green flags to look out for when you're evaluating potential people to work with?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I always tell people, like, look beyond the credentials.
Okay.
Certifications, experience, that's all important.
Right. You want them to be qualified?
But you also have to think about communication styles, personality, even shared values. Like, do you actually like this person?
So it's kind of like dating,
Eh.
but for your financial future.
Yeah, in a way, yeah. Because you're going to be spending a lot of time with this person talking about really important personal stuff.
You've got to feel good about them on a human level.
Yeah, trust your gut on that, right? If something feels off, it probably is.
Exactly.
And I think a big one for me would be like, if I feel like someone's more interested in selling me something than they are in like understanding me,
Yes.
that's a red flag.
100%.
Mm.
A good financial advisor is invested in your long-term success.
Right.
They're not trying to just like make a quick buck off you.
They're playing the long game, which is what you want to be doing with your finances anyway.
Exactly.
This has been so eye-opening. I feel like I've learned so much about like the back end of how this industry works. Any final words of wisdom for our listeners before we wrap up our deep dive here?
I think just, remember, knowledge is power.
Yes.
The more you understand about personal finance, the better decisions you're going to make for yourself, for your family.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be intimidating, this world.
Yeah.
It can feel that way at first, but there are amazing resources out there to help you learn and grow. This podcast is a great example.
There you go. And on that note, I think it's time for us to sign off for today. We've covered so much ground, but like you said, this is really just the beginning of your journey towards, really owning your financial literacy. So keep asking questions, keep learning, and keep taking control. Until next time.